Welcome to the Ecom Collab Club podcast, where operators, risk takers, and battle-tested founders drop the lessons that cost them time, money, and their sanity, and share what actually works so you don't have to pay the same price. Hosted by Peter Gardner and Adam Pierce, founders of the Ecom Collab Club and Blend Commerce, the Shopify CRO agency.
Now, as a Sheffield Wednesday fan, our guest today knows the long game. And he's here today to help you and your brand get to grips with global growth without losing your mind, without losing margins, all through payments, FX, and logistics. Now, if your Shopify dashboard makes you want to cry, this, my friends, is your episode. Today, we're joined by George Bland from Airwallex, who's here to show you how to stop currency conversation quietly robbing your profile and how to scale cross-border without hiring another accountant you find it hard to communicate with. George, welcome.
Cheers, gents. Thanks for having me on.
And I nearly got that introduction done, and I nearly completely screwed it up. But hey, there we go.
That's all good. I mean, you are still way better at that introduction than I am, mate. So it's good to have you back to do those.
Try.
George, Sheffield Wednesday.
Yes, mate. Look, it's, as you can probably hear as well, I haven't got the refined London quintessentially British twang. So it's very much the Sheffield side's deep rooted. It's I mean probably helps in sales and in commercial world, the highs and lows, the peaks and troughs. Although with Sheffield Wednesday, I'm yet to see that many peaks, to be fair. I'm still waiting for that one.
When you were talking about that refined accent, I thought you were going to say the Brummie accent, but
no.
I've just got this image in my mind of like someone in the States listening to this right now who's going, these three guys are, well, I mean, you've got like a South African, a guy from up north, and a Brummie. Like, Jesus Christ, they've got no chance.
I literally had to do the same thing last week in Amsterdam, where presenting and speaking on stage, to literally go, it was me, colleague is an Aussie, and I'm like, look, we'll have to put out just a statement here because it's probably not what you expected. Aussie, a lad from the north of England in Amsterdam, speaking to you probably in broken English about your financial tech stack. So
whilst everyone was stoned as well, which is probably not not really what was helpful.
We actually had an Ecom Collab Club in Sydney beginning of the year, and everybody in the panel, I think out of everybody that spoke, there was actually one Australian. Everybody was from the UK, from New Zealand, pretty much everywhere else but from Australia. Yeah, it's crazy how those things happen in e-commerce. Everybody's from everywhere, huh?
Mm.
But talking about Ecom Collab Club, Adam, yesterday, how did it go? What was the main topics?
We did. No, very good. And actually, funnily enough, George made my little clip that I put on LinkedIn. You very, very nicely cut across the screen, which really added some action level to it. But no, Bob, it was good. We had two topics. One was AI, and the second one was sustainability and e-commerce.
One of those get me really excited.
Pardon?
One of those get me really excited.
Sustainability, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I mean, you're an absolute green warrior. I mean, we know this. But I mean, like, I think, look, the AI conversation was great because I think what it did is it threw up two things. One is that obviously, number one, there is a very different perception about what AI is doing between brands, tech providers, and agencies. And it was interesting is that someone in the audience was kind of asking, a brand was asking about, what will AI start to replace things like email marketing? And I think the resounding answer was no, which was good. And then obviously from a sustainability point of view, I think it was a great panel in the sense that, look, you and I, Bob, I think are very skeptical about panels around sustainability because it always feels a little bit wishy-washy. And what was very different yesterday, and look, George, you were in the audience as well, I'd be interested in you think, is that all the panelists, I think, were very realistic about sustainability and e-commerce and the fact that there are trade-offs when it comes to, kind of trying to be a sustainable business, but equally it is still ultimately about being a profitable business. And that's ultimately what we're all here to do.
Yeah, you can't be helping the planet if you're not making a profit, because then you got no money to pay for that, right?
That's a fine line, isn't it? And I mean, to what you just said, Adam, it was quite open and honest with it, of like, and then when it got into the B Corp side of chatting about what does that actually mean, how is it used properly, there's different areas of what one, staying true to your business, but also, as you said, at the end of the day, you're a business owner. So it's how far do you go with that, and what is that trade-off that you then make without losing you want to lose as little as possible, right? To your sort of roots and the reason you've set up a business like that.
Absolutely. And just tracking back for a second, Henry has confirmed. Look, he said, appreciate the subtitles. So, Henry, I'm glad that feature on LinkedIn is working well for you this morning, sir. Anyway.
That's good. So the rest of the Ecom Collab Club, it's not like I've got FOMO or anything, and I'm asking questions about it. But good turnout. Lots of
good turnout at about 140 in the room. I braved it finally to go and stand on the bar to actually welcome people in, which kind of did give me semi-vertigo. Got some free Henry vacuum merch from Catherine Pneumatic. So morning, Catherine, if you're watching or listening or wherever you are. So yeah, very, very good.
That's good. And seeing that it was the last one for the year, did you wear that the gold jacket of yours?
I didn't know, and a few people complained we didn't have Christmas music and there wasn't like any awards or anything. But I'm like, you know what? Like, give me a fucking break. Like, it's hard enough trying to run.
It's also November. I'm staunch on there's no Christmas music pre-December.
I have got to put up Christmas decorations on Sunday. So if you're listening to this like another point in time, we're now on Thursday, the 13th of November, which means that this Sunday I'm putting Christmas decorations. And there is nothing like pressure from a 7-year-old and 4-year-old. I mean, I've been in some tough negotiations in my time, but with a 7 and 4-year-old girl, like, no, very, very different.
I have a feeling that your wife and my wife have been talking and been planning that they're putting up Christmas trees on Sunday, because same thing in my house. What is this? It's going to be 12 days of Christmas, isn't it?
Yeah, not 363.
Anyway, right, we have rambled a lot. George, who are you? What are you doing here on this podcast with these two crazy idiots that are sandwiching you from the outside here?
It's probably the question everyone wants to know, isn't it? At 10 a.m. on a Thursday morning. But for those who don't know me or have not come across me before, I'm George. I run agency partnerships here at Airwallex. For those that don't know about Airwallex or who Airwallex are, we are a global payments platform that enables brands supporting them with their cross-border commerce. So we allow them to collect, manage, settle, and spend funds globally, and support them in managing that entire transaction life cycle all through the one platform.
Nice. And George, this is you've been at Airwallex a while now, but if you could think back, what attracted you to Airwallex, and why not? Why not if a role at a traditional bank or something else? What was the big attraction to Airwallex?
I'd previously, prior to being at Airwallex, like I've been in payments before. I was at Klarna for a good stint there, 5 or 6 years. Was also out in Australia setting it up with them as well, and saw very many similarities in the Airwallex story to that of the Klarna one, where it got that sort of rocket ship growth. Also, at the time, in the BNPL space, it wasn't really a prevalent thing. It was like the new kid on the block. What is this? It's different. It was yes, it's banking because they had a banking license, but we're obviously not. We're working with Snoop Dogg. We're working with Lady Gaga. This is the cool way to pay. Look at us with Pink. And just sort of the energy in that space in a fintech sort of startup but growth mode where you are just all hands to the pump. Really sort of set it apart. And then when I was looking into a new role and looking across the space, obviously still within that payments ecosystem, just everything aligned, to be fair, with Airwallex from the product, where they were at. I knew the business from partnering with them at Klarna as well. And kind of looked at it and went, shit, this is a product that works and is not going to stop anywhere. And I mean, that's shown over the last, we've been around 10 years, and it took us 9 years to get to 500 million ARR. And in the last year, we've doubled that to hit 1 billion in ARR, which is sometimes kind of when you're in the trenches with it, you don't take that step back and go, whoa, this is Joe. Like, I think sometimes you take a personal lens where you're like, oh, what's going on in my role? This is happening here, or this is working, this isn't working. But then taking that step back every now and again and going, bloody hell, this is pretty awesome.
George, that's a pretty significant jump. Like, and I know there are probably many facts at play, but things that you can share. I mean, look, do you think there's 2 or 3 things that have really kind of flipped that switch then to give that jump in that period?
Yeah, I think like the big one is the business has spent so many years building out the infrastructure, and like you'll start to see stuff now, like we're pushing campaigns where what we're wanting to do is change and be the future of banking, right? But that isn't just something that's turnkey and you do overnight. It's like you've got to set the foundations, and it's the same throughout a lot of things. When you're setting up a business, when you're going global, it's looking, and I've mentioned this with you boys on panels before, it's doing the small things but doing it right and getting the base set up. And that is literally what we've done. We've gone out, partnered with the relevant financial institutions, leaders in the space, got the relevant banking licenses across different markets. That's allowed us to then set the foundations, build, and then from a product aspect, layer on top of that. And that's where you see across the platform itself, there's quite a large breadth of product. And now that we've got to that stage, we can really sort of hone in on that and delve into where can we solve across the board and really support businesses with their growth, and that as we grow, they grow as well.
And I think on that note about the kind of the growth thing, I think, look, a lot of the agencies and the brands and the operator, the founder or operating of the companies listing, when we're doing business now, like you said, a lot of us are working in multiple stores, multiple markets. That's kind of a given for a lot of people. When you talk about kind of like one clean payment spine, what does that mean? What does it look like in practice?
Yeah, I think a lot of people look at that from the front end side, and by the front end being straight at checkout, right? When actually the way we look at it from that sort of payment spine is looking across the board of how you as a business are working, right? Because as soon as you're operating outside of your domestic market, right? And this could be with suppliers, it could be licensing fees for tech that you've got coming in, or in its simplest form, customers, right, on your store coming from multiple markets. As soon as you're outside of your domestic or operating in any currency that's touching the payments flow outside of that, you need to have the correct setup, which the majority of the time what we see is a lot of brands, or I've seen this across e-com, it's kind of not as such a priority. And you can understand that, right? Because the focus if you think about it, if you're setting up a brand, you're setting up a business, unfortunately, the first thing you do is you're not sitting there and going, oh, I wonder who my acquirer is, or oh, I wonder what payment method I'm going to use. You're actually looking at, how do I get customers? How do I get from A to B? How am I getting customers to my site? How am I getting them to come through? The payments part kind of comes last. So a lot of the time we see brands looking at it at a later stage. And that's where it can either be, it's a bit of a double-edged sword. Sometimes it can be a real sort of godsend, because you're sitting there and go, right, let's have a look at everything. You've got suppliers in China, in Hong Kong, in Singapore. How are you paying them? Right. You've got a single business bank account here in the UK with, I don't know, Barclays, Lloyds, HSBC. Okay. And you've got customers coming from 5-6 different markets paying in 4 different currencies. So straight away there's fragmentation. And it's trying to highlight that of, well, how do you unify it and make it even just one step simpler? Whether that be from mitigating FX at checkout, of going, right, you haven't got a bank account in the US, or you haven't got a collection account in the US, and you can understand why, because you'd have to go out and set up an entity there. You'd have to go and have boots on the ground. It's going to cost you an arm and a leg, right? So, and this comes back to that part that I was saying earlier, where we've done the hard work for businesses that we partner with, because then in a flick of a switch, we can provide you with that locally domiciled account functionality in that market, to allow for that revenue collection. You can then, once you've got that set up, look at it from a payouts aspect, right? The banking rails that we provide allow you then to operate like a local in that foreign market from the comfort of your domestic. So when you're paying your supplier in Hong Kong or in China, right, do you want to pay them in USD, or do you want to pay them in local currency? Have you got that functionality? And it just gives you as a business, I would say, that bit more of control and visibility, because you can then see the inflows, the outflows, what the pay-ins, the movement, the treasury aspect of it. And as I said, it's not the sexy. Do you know what I mean? Nobody wants to go in, like you guys, business owners. You're going in looking at 5-6 different pieces of tech, going, what's that fee there? Oh, I'm working with this client in this market. Shit, they're in the US. I've got to now build them. Let me do the conversion on that. Who's going to lose out? They're not going to pay me in GBP because they're going to get hit on it. I, as a business owner, then have to go, well, do I mark it up and it looks like it's some random price of $73,294, or do I give it them as a set, but I take a hit where actually that then doesn't convert properly into my books, and I've got to then go and work through that, and that account keeping sort of nightmare that comes.
Yeah. I mean, George, I want to jump in here because I think, look, you mentioned that, look, this isn't the sexy side of ecom, but I think the thing for me is what we're actually talking about is kind of a sexy marketing term, which is localization. Because for years in marketing textbooks, marketing discourse, whatever it is, everyone always talks about localization. McDonald's is always the textbook case of different things for different markets, blah, blah. But ultimately, what you're saying is part of that, isn't it? Because it doesn't, if, for example, I remember, we had Ryan, who used to head up lingerie for M&S, talk at Ecom Collab Club, and he was talking about women's body shapes being different in different parts of the world. If then obviously they've gone to all that trouble of making sure that those products are then better suited to their customers, but then when it gets to checkout, there are a load of payment providers that actually customers don't recognize. All of that is completely and utterly in vain. So I think this is what I wish people would start to think about in terms of the back end of e-commerce, rather than all the fluffy bollocks at the front, which everyone gets really excited about. Actually, from a bottom line point of view, this is the shit that actually matters. Sorry, I feel better now. I feel I've got some therapy.
No, that's it, mate. You can come sit on some of the calls that we do and bang that drum. But you are right, because it's not right. You look at customers and you see that all the time of brands where it's like, we're global. We've gone global. what does that mean? And they're like, well, I've got a customer coming from here, I've got a customer coming from there, from like the US, I've got a customer coming from the Netherlands, and it's like, yeah, but you're only offering card payments. Like, you're not optimizing for it. And I think what you've also got to look at, especially in today's day and age with technology and how people are shopping, like, you're going to see it even more when the buzzword around AI and agentic shopping and commerce. Customers are, at the end of the day, lazy, right? For none of a better word. We, all three of us probably sat here, have gone there, sat at home, you've seen something, or even on your laptop, you're looking and you go, right, then ends up happening, your card's in your pocket, in your wallet, there's upstairs, you go, right, I'm off, you've lost me. And you look at how Apple Pay, Google Pay is taken on in this world, it's nothing out of the box in terms of extraordinary, but suddenly in 2 clicks, I'm paying for everything. Or if I'm on a website, or if I'm on my phone, I'm getting hit with ads across Instagram, through wherever. I go through, if Apple Pay's not there, that's a simple one of just going, how can I have that uplift and let customers come through? Then to your point on the localization aspect, I mean, we see this all the time. And again, from the partnerships that we've built and how we operate as both a PSP and an acquirer, I mean, our scope of payment methods is second to none. Like, from a local aspect, I think our coverage is across 160 plus markets. So we can really, on that side, when we're working with brands, I do this with partners as well. If you're looking at internationalization as a strategy, then look at the partnerships of where can we help you with that? Because if you want to go, if you want to go sort of hyper localized, we can delve right into that. And on the flip side, if you want to kind of get that one fits all coverage with certain payment methods, which you can, and there are them out there, Klarna's one of them, right? They're across 20 markets. It's then, how can we support you on that? But I think the main part is understanding what is it that you want as a brand, and what are you looking at as a business? Because again, it is all right looking at each market and going in with each individual payment method. But if you don't know who you're catering that for, then those suddenly become redundant and actually could probably take up quite a bit of time on your checkout, because you've got this sort of massive broad payments. I've seen it. I mean, Pete, you must see a few of them in Australia. I'd never seen so many when I was there, of like checkouts with 10 BNPLs on it, of like, and you just kind of, you sat there going, what the hell's going on here? Because what are you actually getting out of each one, so to speak? But then when you look at it from a direct market perspective, for example, you're not going to get the likes of a Klarna in Singapore, or in Japan, or in South Korea. All three of those markets. And it's not sort of, when you look at APAC as an example, it's not really a market you can look at and sort of bridge as a whole, of go, oh, there's one payment method that everybody uses. Each market has its own nuance and is completely different in how consumers pay. And that's where I think sometimes businesses sort of not lose out, but like, don't look at that granular detail of like, right, do you have the right payment rails to be going on to the likes of a WeChat Pay, Alipay, Union Pay? If you're looking in Japan or Korea on JCB, like, have you got the right partners to do that? Some would just think, oh, I can just stick a payment method on here and customers will be able to shop. So from that side, localization and having the coverage is huge, but also having the understanding of a business of where are we going, what's next for us in that growth market. And we've done this. I mean, recently we did this with Adenola, where they sat there as a brand and super interesting, because you go, well, it shows that it's across the board. It's not just from SMB, mid-market, it's all the way up to enterprise, where these brands are always wanting to go that one step further. So it was sitting down with us and actually doing a bit of a mapping session of, right, in the next 2, 4, 6 years, what's the growth plan? And where do you see, right, if you want to 2x, 5x the business, where do you see that coming from, and what are you going to double down into? And that's then when you start looking at markets to go, right, have you considered, again, in the DAC markets, bank-to-bank transfers, very prevalent way to pay. But in each one, you're going to get different payment methods. The Netherlands, you're going to get Ideal. Belgium, you're going to get bank contact. Germany, you're looking at gyro pay, right? And then in the US, you're looking at a completely different market where it's very credit card heavy. So, and even there, where BNPL has been around a while, it's still on a bit of a growth journey there, and is still that main market. So it's right, which partners, what can we tap into in that space to then help you double down? And then as that comes through from a collections piece, because we've got that, this is when where that sort of spine that you're mentioning comes through, right? Of the, great, you're offering these local payment methods, fantastic. And businesses can do this at the moment. It's not just solely with us. Like you look at Shopify, they're now enabling more local payment methods. But then on that spine piece, it's, well, right, you've gone and set up something for Europe or for the US, but you're still operating in the same way in your back end now, where you've only got your local domicile business account. So you've opened up and you've brought in new customers, you've brought in new revenues, conversions are high, but then you're still getting hit because that conversion fee then coming through on foreign dollars that are coming in. And then if you're to use that again to double down in the market, it's essentially, we call it the conversion trap, of that every foreign dollar gets cut up 3 times. One, when it's coming in and processing, the second at a point of settling, and then the third, when you're going to use it again to push for the growth in that market. If you're looking to go into the US, you're probably going to pump a bit more into the marketing spend. Now, if you're looking at paid media in those markets, you're going to be paying in USD. So suddenly you're bringing in USD, it's force converted into GBP, it sits in your account, and then your CFO, your CEO, your accountant goes, well, you could have done with that USD because we're about to pay 50 grand this month for a paid media campaign. But now I'm actually having to pay maybe 60 grand, depending on what the conversion is, or look at it from that aspect. And that's where we start to see that spine coming through, because it doesn't just stop at checkout. It then comes through across the board of, right, it's now it's sat in your accounts. Do you need to move it across? Yeah. Well, okay. Airwallex itself's built on its own proprietary FX engine. Right. I don't have to now then push this into another platform to then bring it back in. It's all in that one flow of streamlining it through to then go, where do I need this? When do I need it? Can I hold it? Yeah, perfect. So I've got the account to do so. Actually, I need to send this out to my suppliers. Right. I need to convert this into Hong Kong dollars, move it out, and then I pay it like a local within the same day, 1 to 2 days, and it's straight away there.
Talk us through the setup now for somebody that's just starting out with you. They're going, look, we've gone local, but it's a mess. We're collecting everything in one currency. They've approached you guys and said, look, we know this is costing us a ton of money.
Yep.
How do we get through this process here? You know, like you mentioning that you've got different local bank accounts, and it sounds like a lot of work. What is that process? What's that first 90 days? What's that tech stack to make sure that you're nailing that?
Well, I think the first thing that we do is kind of have that mind mapping session, right? If we look at what's the current setup that you have, what are you using, right? And also, what are your pain points? There are times where you can see this and look at the product, and sometimes, I mean, I've had this myself where people go, holy shit, what's all this? Because there's so much to it. But the beauty of that is you could use the platform for as little or as much as you need. What you start to then see in that 90-day process from coming on board is that if you have only come to Airwallex to utilize us for setting up a local payment method, fine, fantastic. If it's coming because you need to open up accounts in a new market, again, fantastic. It's at a very, usually at that smaller end, at that starting point, it's very much in a singular, granular product aspect. But then what we start to do is sit down and look, as I was saying, of who are you utilizing across your tech stack? Right. Are you using 3 or 4 providers where we could actually support you on that? If you look from an issuing aspect or corporate employee expenses, right, you're using another platform here. So you're having to, in some cases, if it's prepaid, for example, on those cards, nightmare. You're going to your accountant. How do I move the funds out of here? I need X amount now. It just becomes quite laborious going through that and having to constantly chop and change from different pieces of tech, different providers. And slowly, sometimes it's a light bulb moment and businesses see it straight away. We're in the process of working with an agency at the moment who are looking at it from that lens as well. They're using Xero for their accounting. They're using Stripe for collections. They're also using Go Cardless. They've got a number. They've then got another platform for literally currency conversion and hedging. And where we've come in, have gone, it's understanding your pain points, I think, is the big one. A lot of the time when we go out to brands or we have the conversations, or even where, like in the past, Adam, where you've introduced me to a brand for a specific reason, right? We then sort of going, great, we can do that. That's fantastic, tick box. But let's actually have a look under the hood and see where we can take this one step further and see that and start to connect the dots. Because one thing that I think doesn't translate a lot of the time, and we've seen this with brands, it's not just about the cost savings as well, but also the time and the hours that you don't see, where, like, from, again, its simplest form of receipt collection. Like, how many times have you sat there and gone, it's a Sunday, and go, oh shit, I've got 20 receipts here, I've got to upload it, or so-and-so in finance is going to absolutely hammer me, or I've lost this receipt, where's that? All the way through to your reconciliation of, I've got all these invoices to be paid. How am I going to do that? It's in 20 different currencies. I've got one going out here, one's coming out here. Actually, I need to see what's coming through my orders from my dashboard, sync this all up. I've got 5 new starters coming on from a payroll aspect. Sometimes it's just consolidating that, and what we're trying to do is unify that infrastructure, so that we come in as that sort of middle layer, connecting the dots from e-com to your accounting to your banking, where it's not a sort of a rip and replace everything right now, but it's how do we slowly just streamline that and then start to connect the dots to save, again, cost, time. Like, I think there was a brand that we worked with, or Commission Factory. I think they cut their time down. It's like 10 days a month in reimbursements by utilizing our automated like spend management platform, where the receipt flow, the approval flows, their teams can literally sit there and go, right, this team has X amount of budget. Who's the different cost centers? Where does this come through? Right, auto upload. I can just take a picture. Sometimes it's also forwarding the receipts, going straight into my email. We've got the functionality, and where the business is utilizing AI and LLM is looking at that of, right, I see this as a constant purchase coming through. You don't have to manually put in these details. It's taking it, it's plugging it. Right, paid. I know exactly what it is. It's those little things that just slowly start to support the business. And I think for a payments aspect, actually where Airwallex is like, for those sort of that do know us or have spoken where they've spoken with me before, probably the focus has traditionally been on that revenue collection piece, on the payments, right? The acquiring, and how do we compare against Shopify payments or the Addians, the Stripes of the world, and don't see payments from that other side of your spend management, your reconciliation, your sort of FTE, looking at headcount, looking at supplier payments. There's a lot more to it than just that side of, oh, can you help me stick another payment method on checkout?
With Shopify, if you are going global, do you guys integrate if it's just one store and then localized per country on the checkout, or do they have to have multiple stores?
We're a mix, so it depends on the product, and like, this is again the sort of double-edged sword of Shopify and us being a partner. Like, we are a partner of Shopify. The platform itself, I think for anybody starting out, and you're sort of seeing this even in the market now, going from brands that were on old sort of legacy platforms moving into the Shopify space, is testament to what they've built as a platform. Where we to answer your question, there's twofold of where we can work on it, Pete. The best use case, because we have that collection functionality in terms of the banking infrastructure, is if you are a brand that's on Plus and you've got multi storefront, so separate URLs, expansion stores is the word I'm looking for. That's where we come into our own, and like, straight away for a business can save 2 to 3% on every transaction, because what we can do in that space, take a UK brand, has a UK store.co.uk, has a .us store, and has a .eu, right? Where we can come into our own on that is we can provide you a fully native Shopify checkout. So it's second to none. The only thing you're going to miss out on in specific markets is shop pay functionality. And then from there, we can do the card processing. We can process USD. And the difference of this is when we can settle into USD. So those USD funds are coming through US shoppers. Their USD settles into USD into your Airwallex account. Where traditionally, if you're a single Shopify account user and you've got this multi-store setup in terms of expansion stores, those USD funds, those Euro funds, are going to get force converted back into your business account that's attached to your Shopify stores. So that's one way. That's like that was the main use case. But obviously, you'll see this now with Shopify, and there's a big push where what they're wanting to do and is bring that so that you're not having to manage 4 or 5 different stores, right? Of bring it into one and utilize markets. And that is where then again we can work there, but in a different way. So it's less so from the card payments and the card processing side. What we actually have then is Shopify markets compatibility. And I think there's only us and maybe I think Adyen from an enterprise level that have this. And what that means is those local payment methods that we can offer, and that coverage that we've got, we can implement into your Shopify checkout, sat there underneath the card payments area, and then have that same functionality. So those Klarna shoppers in Poland, in the US, in France, all those funds will then settle like for like into your Airwallex account. And then from there, you can utilize those funds, draw them back into your home currency, but you've got that collection and you're not being hit then on that forced conversion fee. And you see that again, even from the account side. Like, there's all these features that Shopify keep bringing out, and you look at like multi-currency payouts. fantastic feature, but only if you as a business have the banking infrastructure to set it up, right? Which is when you come into sort of the SMB, the mid-market space, it's like what I was saying at the beginning. The majority of the time, businesses haven't got functionality. They haven't got that infrastructure set up. So, yeah, fantastic feature to have, but only then relevant if you've got the features yourself to attach that to your store. Because you can. I think it's something like you can add up to eight bank accounts or 8 collection accounts outside of your existing business account to your Shopify store. If you're on, I think it's advanced or plus. So even that, and it's simply like is straight away. Well, who's got the coverage to do that? Who can support with that? Right. From an Airwallex standpoint, you can open 14, or you can open up to I think it's 10 accounts across 14 different markets. Again, that's across 22 different currencies. So then you can start to plug in there. That's an instant saving. You're saving 1% as opposed to a forced 2% on conversion. It sounds like nothing, but it's a starting point that as you grow, and I say this a lot of the time, we're not somebody that when we partner with brands or we look at businesses that we look straight away at top line revenue of how do we bring you in another 100 grand a month, right? It's looking at the other side of your bottom line. How do we support on a cost base where actually monthly we're going to save you 2 to 3% across the board, not just on payments, but across the board, or where that is a constant as you grow as a business and as you continue to, if it's 2x, if it's 5x, then that cost, that 5% or 3% stays the same and only grows with you, which then allows businesses to reinvest into other projects or work with the likes of yourselves, right? Right, I've got this saving here. I've got a bit of, I've got funds here. Where can I put it into? What can I put it into? As opposed to probably looking at that from the start and going, oh, I want to do this. I want to look at this whole CRO audit, check my whole website, and then if something doesn't work, oh, that's your fault. But like having that where you can then look and strategically have the impact that will be a constant cycle, right? Of that you're saving costs, you're putting back in, that grows the top line. As the top line grows, that cost, that base margin keeps on going up as well.
I mean, I think what's been great about today, Joy, is like you've given a lot of things that I think are going to prevent people from sort of taking missteps. And I think, like you mentioned before, I always come to you as that source of truth and information about when we have brands, because look, this is an area that I know hardly anything about from an e-commerce perspective. I'm happy to admit that. And I think this is what's great with you guys is that you and the rest of the team, you take that burden off people's shoulders to be able to deal with this kind of stuff. But I suppose the other thing, and it's like with Ecom Collab Club and e-commerce in general, when we talk and when we have cases and when we have people talking, there is always this conversation about, well, what I would have done differently, or I made these mistakes, blah, blah. In terms of, I guess, sort of from your world, what are the classic sort of like own goal moments that people have when they go global that you guys see and end up having to help them kind of dig them out of that hole?
I think the big one's it's not as such the own goal side of it. It's knowing and not actioning, or just the what I call the sort of living with it. And we see this with like brands know they're getting punished with fees, or they from their and they just go, well, I know it's there, live with it because it works. That's one of the big ones, or the reluctancy to move because it means change. like you can see the value of where there's a cost saving, or the movement of funds is quicker, or even from a reduction in costs on literally, we could split your fees in half, or of your card processing, you know, like you can get as competitive, and there's just that, yeah, but this works. But it's like, but it doesn't, but it's obviously not working because we're having this conversation in the first place. That's the big one that we see. The other side sort of, I think it's at no fault of anybody's. It is, you don't know what you don't know as well, right? And I think a lot of the time when businesses are looking at going global, as I said at the beginning, it's not that they're not necessarily looking at the back end side of where am I going to get stung, right? It's a bit of a pessimistic way of looking at things. Oh, where am I going to get hit? Or where am I actually going to lose money? Because when you're looking at going global, you're probably going at, what's the next market for us to go into? Where can we drive the most revenue? Where can we have the most impact? And it's a lot more of a sort of top-down approach, not a bottoms-up approach to it. So I think sometimes it is the thing that stings people is that just not knowing, or not having the full understanding of the functionality or what is out there that they could tap into.
And I think I suppose the other thing is, if, you know, let's say that someone listens to this who's, you know, a brand founder, if you had 30 minutes with them and a whiteboard,
yep,
what diagrams, apart from obviously the classic whiteboard diagram of taking a pen and drawing a penis, but apart from that, what else would you write on that whiteboard, and what would you be telling them?
First would be like, we're all Wednesday, and then it'd literally be a sort of, you'd look at it in a mind map of going across the funnel and looking at that stage, the consumer journey, the business journey, in terms of what are the different touch points, right? So if I look at it from the customer journey at the front of checkout, right, who are you utilizing there? Then looking at it from your inventory, your order management, your ERP, what are you utilizing? Who are you utilizing? And across each part of the tech stack, be looking at, is there anywhere here in each and every part, even through to your email marketing, is there anything where you are operating outside of your domestic currency? And if so, how? Like, and then you start to look, it's kind of like you start to not pin the holes, but you start to look at where the leaks would come in the cup. And go, right, what's out of this, what sort of goal 1, 2, and 3? What's the biggest impact that you want out of this? And then you start to look at it there. And then you go, because a lot of the time when we're working with businesses, this isn't a tick and flick job, or like it's an instant, you've come to work with us, or you're interested in Airwallex, and then suddenly these things can take 3, 6, 9 months, because you're looking at the business as a whole across different areas and different peaks and troughs throughout the year of, right, where do we want to start, and what is that end goal, and what are the pain points that you've got for us to go, well, actually we can help with that. And that's not just from our product either. That's like when we look at it from, again, the partners that we've built out throughout the space. It's you see, again, like when it's coming to delivery, people again ask those questions around, well, what do you know around the logistics? What are we doing about this? It's like, well, look, sometimes we are helping on the direct fund flow, as opposed to actually who you need to speak to there. So then when it's looking at like warehousing, right, we can help you pay for the warehousing and sort of mitigate costs there, but actually come work with this part, like a Big Blue or somebody in Europe, right, of going, we partner with these guys because they fit the gap. We see the funnel and the chain that it goes across and where they come into it, and that's where we support across it. So it's quite a wide view that we take when bringing a business and going through that whiteboarding session. It's dot pointing every part of that flow of where we can and also where we can't support, because there will be times where for some it'd be like, actually we can't facilitate that, whether it's a certain market or from like, I mean, we mentioned this earlier, from a tax perspective, for example, it's just not our wheelhouse. But it's like, how can we help you plug in? Because if you're needing that and you're needing to understand the VAT or the tax in different countries, then there's going to be a sort of a natural progression into where we can support you once you're operating in that space.
George, unfortunately now I know Peter is going to be a bit of a bastard, and he's going to. I think you've got a devil's advocate section, haven't you? Have you, Peter? Is that right?
Always got to bring a devil's advocate section because, you know, I mean, if you've made your dollar in being in sales, you know these are the questions that you get, and you're gonna have to answer them.
Yep.
Let's shoot. And the first one. But if my laptop gets stolen in a pub, people will get access to all my bank accounts.
Right. So in that scenario, no, because we've got a 24-hour tech team that knows exactly, and also very, very responsible employee that would turn around and log it straight away. But in terms of,
you must have some recent experience of this, George. I don't know. I mean,
yeah. As I'm talking on my shiny new laptop that I got as of 9:30 this morning. So for anybody listening, I was robbed last night in a pub in Soho and lost my my work laptop. But from that side, when you look at sort of, if you spin that from just in a general question of like, from a funds aspect, the bank accounts, like everything that we do within Airwallex, we're always looking at that. So even the accounts themselves, fully secured ring-fenced accounts, we operate, and that's where we have those licenses, right? We out of the UK, we're what's called an EMI, an e-money institute, which we can essentially operate exactly like a bank, but can't call ourselves a bank. So from that security aspect as well, in terms of you going into your own Airwallex account, the web app itself, there is everything set up from two-factor authentication. All the parameters are there for, look, should anything happen, or in a scenario like last night, that everything that you've got in your accounts is secure. And that if there's anything that we think is suspicious, or we've seen this from like phishing side, we've got teams that are looking at that and monitoring that, and will be in contact with yourselves of like, look, this seems suspect, or it doesn't, like, when are you logging in, who's logging in, how have they got that many different attempts going on. We'll look at different controls across that to ensure that everything that within your account and the platform is safe.
So, I mean, would it be fair to say that you're essentially doubling up on some fraud detection here, because you've got those partnerships with the banks,
Yep,
which have got their own fraud detections.
Yep.
Plus, then you've got Airwallex on top of that.
There's then hours, and that goes across the board, from also like if you're transferring funds, looking at setting certain amounts if something doesn't look correct, all the way through to even at checkout of again, from that acquiring piece, or where we're running the full checkout. It's that ensuring that we are sort of, I think it's PSDC or compliant along that side, looking in-house how we work. We have our own fraud detection product. So that again is something that also in the sort of age of AI is constantly machine learning, of looking at that on sort of the reg of going, what's coming through, What do we see that normally comes through is fraudulent? How do we stop that to ensure that nothing is getting through? Like, there is always going to be some. It happens all the time. It's not going to be 100% right. It never is. But that's where sort of, as you're feeding the machine and machine learning comes into it, we've got that, and our teams are constantly feeding that with information so that it's at the top, very top level.
Cool. We won't throw you those proper curveballs now, but we'll still give you some. I'm sure these are some that you guys hear. We only sell to 5 countries.
Mm-hmm.
Do we really need multi-currency accounts and local rails right now?
That's one where it's, again, dependent on the business setup, right? If you're looking at it from the collection piece, maybe not. If you're looking at Europe, and that's being completely transparent, right? It's knowing when is the right time to sort of supercharge that growth of probably when you're taking it from 5 to 10. But it's also dependent on where those countries are. If you've got somebody if you're in the UK and you've got US, Hong Kong, Singapore, UAE, you have got 5 different currencies coming in, which it's only beneficial for yourself to collect in those. On the flip side, from the payouts piece on the rails, again, you could sell to 5 countries, not do the collection piece, but again, you could have suppliers in 5 different countries, which then you're paying in 5 different currencies. And sometimes it's not just paying the local currency. Having those local rails is the difference between you sending funds and them arriving sometimes instant, sometimes max 1 to 2 days, as opposed to going via a Swift network and having, like, our CEO talks about this. The Swift network is something that's been around since the 70s, right? And is still being used as a constant today, but is a sign of, like, the banks in general, and is where we would put ourselves as a differentiator to the banks in general. This is always not saying to get rid of them and not work with them, but it's a slower system. It's an archaic system that is not really up for change or wants to change, because it knows how to make the money, it knows what it does, and all of us trust it, right? Because it's the bank. And where we come into that is, well, you can operate like a local, as I mentioned before, like a local in that foreign market from the comfort of my domestic, where you've probably all seen it, where we're coming up to Black Friday, right? And the nightmare or the horror shows of, I haven't paid my supplier on time, or my supplier in China like, you've seen it where they've held stock, and then it just absolutely knackers the whole supply chain flow. And then your customers are pissed off because I can't get the goods, or I've paid for the goods, I'm now out of pocket, but you haven't paid your supplier, and it creates this backlog. So from that side, I think there's never any harm in working with somebody that's got those local rails for you to operate with, whether that's for funds coming in or funds going out. If you're operating in more than one currency outside of your domestic, then it's always going to be, in my opinion, of benefit for you. Cool.
One last one for you, and then we'll call it a day. But what about regulation and risk? You're not a bank.
No.
You say you can't say you're a bank.
We're not a bank.
Should I be worried if I scale on this?
No, because what we are there, one, to what I mentioned earlier, we're partnered with over 50 plus financial institutions globally. We have licensing across, I believe it's 15 or 16 markets. So we have the relevant regulatory licenses across UK, Europe, Hong Kong, Singapore. And that goes back to that piece that I was saying at the beginning, is kind of the where this growth has come from, is because we've gone into each market, understood what's needed to expand and operate in that space, and have set up with the relevant financial partners to enable us to operate within that space. So in terms of regulation and risk, if anything, we're probably we're on top of it. like across the board. And I think that's where that should be a testament to anybody that is looking at it, if that's why you can scale with us. That's why it's better to utilize the likes of Airwallex and partner with us, because also we've done it ourselves. We started in Australia and we've come across and now operating in 22 different markets. So we know what it takes to actually go into a new space, and as again, we've done the hard yards. And that's where, from a partnerships aspect, that's where we come in and really support businesses, because we've done that and we know what it takes to do it, and we will make that process as easy and as simple as possible for you as a business as well.
Definitely. And George, I think, look, what I would say to anyone listening to this today is, look, you've had the pleasure today of listening to George for around about an hour. And like I always find with George, he is an absolute wealth of knowledge, I think, as all the guys at Airwallex are as well. And I know George won't mind me saying this, to look, ultimately, if you are thinking about expansion, or if you are expanding, and some of the things that George has mentioned today are concerning you, worrying you, or you're just thinking about, have a chat with them, guys. They really are a really helpful group of people who know their stuff. So massive thanks to you, George, for joining us today, mate. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on, gents. Yeah, and I'd just say too that, like, I know I've done this with yourself, but if there is anybody that is interested, like, we'd happily do that sort of session that we just spoken about, like a payment. I don't like to call it a payment audit, because it sounds like I'm some sort of advisor coming in and sitting down and you're going, this needs to change. But we'll sit and run that and go through that with you and look at, is there anywhere that we can support and help? So if there's anybody that is interested, feel free to drop me a note.
Fantastic. And thanks, George, they can find you on LinkedIn?
They can find me on LinkedIn, mate. Send me a connection request on there. Email is simply george.bland@airwallex.com. But yeah, feel free to reach out. Any questions, anything that you want to understand around cross-border payments, supplier payments, your reconciliation, anything, more than happy to chat.
Superb. Thank you very much, mate. Guys, thank you very much for tuning in this week to Ecom Collab Club's podcast. We're here again, same time next week. So hopefully see you then. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you.